We may as well get this show on the road. It's a chilly, overcast, gloomy day here in southeastern Michigan. I show 61 degrees and rain, although I don't see rain, but I can see rain clouds and they're moving by. So it could rain at any minute. But in the house, I got Gene Ritchie, Mexican Spec. Yeah, I'm wearing a blue shirt and I got a blue solo cup. Just a coincidence, I tell you. John Michael Karma, Bob Bong from Niles, Michigan. Daniel Kester's in the house, my friend. How you doing? Good to see you. D Wood, Tigerman 99515, Ram 50 V8, 858 Bill, Mark Sparks, G Keyman's going to be on the road, but want to say hi. Pa Rump Mike, where that's the home of Heidi Fleiss, Art Bell, Melvin Dumar, and for about 5 minutes, Michael Jackson. Did he pass through or did he temporarily own something out there? Yeah, I mentioned the marathon was today, the Detroit Free Press Marathon. I've run that race, I think 11 or 12 times. I'd have to count, go back and count. I did not run it this year. I did not run it last year. But this year it was pouring at the start. My brother was down there hanging out with a friend of his. My brother didn't run it, but his friend did. So he went down there to cheer him on. And he said that it was miserable at the start. And you do not want to run in the rain if you can avoid it. And 26 miles is even worse running in the rain. Ram 50 V8, I got the text that you sent me or the message you sent me, and I see that it did in fact say 5 o'clock, but I had it showing 1 o'clock at my end. So I know that it translates it when it sends it out to people, telling you what time it will be showing in your neck of the woods. So I don't know why it would say that, because I obviously know that you're not the other direction, which would be 5 o'clock. But what are you going to do? Padre, of course, is walking by with them squeaky shoes. If you had a pair, you can get yourself in on the class action. Again, punitive damages because the tennis shoes squeak, or the athletic shoes. We called them tennis shoes back in the old days. Ironically, we didn't play tennis in them, but we wore them to gym class. So there you go. But Ram 50 V8 says it's on my TV, my bedroom, and the same in the living room. Okay, you are obviously in the twilight zone. Locutus from Jersey in the Channel Islands. Thank you for checking in. I think it's really cool. I don't know that much about the Channel Islands. I just know they're really cool. Eileen Luck, good afternoon from Whitby, Ontario. Getting ready for the big chill up and coming. John Michael Carmy, you can still run the turkey trot. Yeah, I stopped running. I ran the turkey trot a couple times a few years ago just because I had friends doing it. But, you get all dressed up and you drive all the way down there, and then you're in this gigantic crowd to run 6 miles, and you do all the stuff to finish and get back. And by the time you're done, you've spent like 3/4 of the day to run 6 miles. And I don't know. What are you going to do? Tossed salad. Have you followed the BC ostrich legal issue? No, I'm totally unaware of what that means. Sorry. Pissed off handicap guy checking from Crystal Falls. Crystal Falls is a very, very cool town in the Upper Peninsula. I always mention that. As you drive through it, you look up the hill and there's a courthouse up there, one of the most picturesque courthouses in Michigan. I'd put it right up there with the one in Houghton County, which is likewise picturesque. Padres says that Barrett Jackson's chat banned him for saying some people were griping like a woman. I have a sneaky feeling they're going to say that was a sexist comment. But the question is, if somebody had said, hey, you're griping like a man, I'm curious to know. Hans Christian Schwartz, hello from Germany. And if Matthias checks in, I'm going to have to tell Matthias that I did, in fact, get his postcard. Still have not gotten the T-shirt, though, which he sent me from Germany. And I feel bad about that. SKS Hugo, rest in peace. Peter Chris. You mean Ace Frehley? Or did another one die? Ace Frehley passed away a couple days ago. So there you go. Chris Better, hello, Steve. Kimberly Kester, hi. Joe Bonchi, Keds are American Flyers. You mean, what did I wear back in the day, or what's the class action all about? The class action is all about a trendier, new hip workout shoe. So there you go. Paul Harris, Sunday Fun Day with Steve. NZ, Kiwi, NZ, good morning from New Zealand. Thank you for checking in. I appreciate that. I assume it's Monday where you're at, which is what we like to say here. It's like y'all. Alex A. from Barrie, Ontario. Raining seems to be over here. Well, we got, about 2 inches of rain starting about 8 o'clock yesterday into about 2 o'clock this morning. It was raining hard, raining hard. But 2 inches isn't bad. The ground soaked it up because the ground has been dry. We have had such little rain the last few months that it just got soaked up like a dry sponge. So Peter Mandix at 77 in Lone Tree today. I've had the snow tires on for a week now. I still have the doors off my Jeep. I drove my Jeep yesterday, driving around with the doors off. I'm not putting those things on until I'm wearing long pants, which tells you also I've been wearing shorts. Oslo, howdy and greetings from Norway. Thanks for checking in, my friend, from Norway. Bob Kerflugen is 50F and raining in Gaylord, Michigan. Padres, others were saying everything was gay and making sexist remarks about April and didn't get banned. Oh, boy. Well, the internet is a mire of confusion, and whether it's the people in the chat arguing with each other or the moderators arguing with those in the chat or what, I don't know. Believe in yourself from Napanee, Ontario. Checking in. Thank you. I appreciate that. The great Quidjabo, I can't stand Barrett Jackson or Meekum after finding out about ghost bidding. Yeah, if you want to go to Barrett Jackson or to Meekum and bid on a car, you can bid on a car, and if you're the high bidder, you'll get it. But you have to understand that, and I got to be careful how I say this, but there have been instances in the past where auctions have, occasionally they call them chandelier bids, where the auctioneer goes, do we have 5,000? We got 5,000. Do we have 10,000? Do we have 10,000? We have 10,000. Do we have 15,000? And the joke is that the auctioneer is looking at the chandelier when he calls that $10,000 bid because it. And I know people who've taken things to auction. I'm not going to say what auction it was, where they were told in essence, here is what we can guarantee you for your car. They're to make sure it's sold one way or the other. And that was no reserve. So there you go. Scott Summers, hello. Clayman 0, rainy Sunday afternoon in Ohio. Dan Boyd is pouring an Ale 81 ginger soda into the same old plastic yellow cup. Daniel Kester, are you staying hydrated? I will as need arises, as the need arises. Pseudonymous. I guess that's right. Pseudonymous. Plethora of pinatas. Shasta County here, so don't plan on keeping your 4-H goat alive here. Yeah, Shasta County is, of course, world famous for how they treat the 4-H goats. And again, that story involved a child. If we're talking adults who signed contracts, I'd go, okay. And if people are going to go, but Steve, her mother signed a contract. Well, there's still a child at the center of this. Come on. So, yeah, NZ Kiwi NZ at 6 a.m. 6 a.m. in New Zealand. Susan, ES69. Yes. Steve, do you speak Finnish? No, I do not. I apologize. I do not. I wish I did, but I don't. My parents spoke Finnish. In fact, my parents both grew up in Finnish-speaking households. And my parents, in fact, were married in a church in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, which routinely conducted its services in Finnish. The hymnals were in Finnish, and their ceremony was conducted in Finnish. So that's how Finnish they are. But they didn't pass that along, the language, to their children, which is unfortunate. Swims kill. Hey, Steve, I got my payout for the story you did on the Facebook class action. I got $33.06. I got like $35 too. I'm not sure if people got different amounts for some odd reason. But yeah, that class action from Facebook and privacy, I don't know. I did a story on it a long time ago, and it turns out that you actually got legitimate money that made it worthwhile for you to cash the check, or at least acknowledge that you got the money sent to you via Zelle, I believe. So Grandpa FPV, good old Michigan Gray here in Oakland County, no less. Oakland County, where I grew up. Oakland County is the county directly north of Wayne County, where Detroit is. Clayman 0, really excited for this week. Not. I have a court date on Wednesday due to a dog at large charge, unfortunately. Your dog got loose? Yeah, it's too bad that they charge you for that. But, it depends on the community you're in. And you hear these stories. And I I had two dogs, Milo and Wolfie, and they both lived to old age. But I mean, I remember being paranoid about them getting loose and getting lost or getting hurt. They wouldn't hurt anybody, but I've also heard stories about dogs that got loose and hurt people, and that's what other people are scared about. So, Fatty Butterpants, I'm here stalking Steve. Better than stalking a weather girl. Oh God. Oslo, how's the weather here in my area in Norway? It's been slippery and cold with a few car accidents due to black ice on the ground. Where we are in Michigan, we do get snow in the wintertime, but we won't have snow probably for another month or so, depending on whether we get lucky or not. But we're still in the area of the year where the leaves fall off the trees. It gets gloomy out. It gets dark earlier, and it gets cold. But if you get icing conditions overnight, it usually warms up as the sun comes out until a little bit later. So there you go. Mark Sparks, I'm not finished, but I did finish the marathon candy bar. And that counts as a finished marathon, my friend. It counts. Dougie Doo, hey, surgery went well and I've got a new lease on life. Maybe I should buy a sports car. Yeah, you should. Double down right now. Why not? Pa Rump Mike, my mother's parents were born in Sweden, came to the US as teens. They only spoke Swedish when talking about stuff they didn't want the kids to know. Oh, my parents did that all the time. When they shifted gears into Finnish, we're like, oh, somebody's in trouble. You just, Steve, oh, it's me again. Tigerman99515. Any towns in Michigan that you know of that have sister cities in Finland? There's a whole bunch of them. There's a whole bunch of them up north. Off the top of my head, I don't follow that. I'm not really sure what that means. I think it's kind of like having a pen pal or something, right? Cascadia, could a convicted felon still become a licensed attorney? Asking for a friend. Hypothetically, yes, but it's tricky. To become a lawyer, you've got to, in most states, and it's changing all the time, you've got to get a law degree, pass the bar exam, and pass character and fitness. And character and fitness is where they actually look at your life resume to determine whether you're somebody who ought to be practicing law. And in the old days, criminal records were automatically disqualifying, but you could always appeal to them, especially if it was older. And it depends on what it was, Did it involve theft or dishonesty, and so I think nowadays you have a better shot at it. But I actually knew somebody who was a convicted felon who got a law degree knowing that they could not practice law, but didn't care because they had a field they could go into where they could use the law degree without being a licensed attorney. Very, very complicated, but I don't know if I can go into much more detail than that, but it's doable. Mrs. Teresa, 1999, says it's sunny in Geneva, New York. Well, that's nice. Although you might get our storms in a day or two. Dan Boyd, I'm still 500 miles away from home. You could walk those 500 miles, couldn't you? Isn't that song? Walk 500 more. It's not me, 07. Hey, Steve and crew. Scott Argyle, of course, checking in from the Oregon coast. Zafar Syed, hey, Steve, mid-October looking good. Pa Rump Mike, did you get into physical fights with your brothers? Not really, no. I'm the youngest of 6 boys, and we were about 9 months and 3 minutes apart, as the old joke says. But no, not really. And we had to double up on the rooms. So my brother and I shared a room. We got along, and we didn't do that. I mean, we spent so much time outdoors running around and stuff that we got out of each other's hair. ES69, do you have laws there about compulsory use of winter tires in cars like we do in Finland? Makes it safer. No, but we do have laws just saying your car's got to be safe and it's got to be in a condition that's roadworthy. Arguably, if you're driving a car with bad treads and you got in an accident, a police officer could ticket you for that, but there's no law requiring you to actually swap your tires out. And so I know a lot of other countries have much, much stricter rules on making sure your cars are roadworthy and so on. Michael Curry still up in Vermont. Sunshine and 60F, but 37F tonight. Fun. Diana C. What about the jewel thief? No, we did not discuss that. I just saw the headlines and read a couple lines about it. Didn't read the whole story, but somebody broke into the Louvre and they didn't steal the Mona Lisa. They stole some jewels. And they apparently got in and out like 7 minutes. And it's going to be one of those stories. It's going to be all over everywhere. So Mark Sparks says Missouri used to allow non-violent felons to become corrections officers until the 90s. I'd have no problem with letting violent felons become corrections officers. I think corrections officers, it doesn't matter what your background is. If you're willing to do that job and you get trained, I suspect that most of them kind of be like, hey, look, I got my life together. It's time you got yours together. I don't think they'd be pulling favors for the prisoners if that's what they're worried about. So Aviva Rabinowitz says, my parents spoke Yiddish when they didn't want the kids to understand. My grandparents spoke Russian. We spelled in English until we had to switch to Spanish. It's like the United Nations over there. Mark Wilson, 67, sunny and 72 here in D.C. Carl's Corner afternoon, Steve, and to you, my friend. William Page, 65 and sunny. John N. Jr. is alive in Corpus Christi, Texas. Daniel Kester, hey, Steve, did your brothers help you avoid the school bullies? I assume that's what you meant to type there. Not really, but I knew that having 5 older brothers meant that people who knew that would leave me alone, and they did. I'm convinced of that. I'm absolutely convinced of that. So standard deviations checking in from the real peninsula, the Olympic Peninsula, Clayman Zero, something tells me you'd have a hard time unloading the Mona Lisa. The funny part is there was that guy who stole it once and was gone for a while, but he just kept it because he thought it was sad that it was actually in a French museum. But yeah, it's always a problem with art. It's also a problem with jewels because those jewels in a museum are unique. It's going to be hard to unload those too. Yeah, the great Quidjabo, the guy who stole the Mona Lisa, kept it in his apartment. Yeah, and he basically just came in, took it off the wall, and walked out with it. You'd have a little harder time doing that today because I think it's behind some stuff. Yeah, John Michael Karma saw the photo where the Louvre thieves used a ladder truck, one of those trucks with a bucket on it for doing work on the second or third floor of a building. Stuff writer, have you done a full video on dealing with that lawyer from Texas that you had to grieve? Did I mention that in a video? This was a long time ago. Cyberdoc, hi, Stephen. All better late than never. Like number 67. We got 238 in the room right now. That's not bad for a gloomy Sunday. Dan Boyd, Mona Lisa is hot. Well, the funny thing is that, and if you ask people, name a famous painting of Mona Lisa, I mean, that's the knee-jerk response. If this was a Family Feud question, it'd only be one answer. The top answer is on the board, and by the way, it's the only answer. Mona Lisa. Everybody, Mona Lisa. Before it was stolen, it was not that well known, and it became well known because of that. Because if you see the Mona Lisa, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's priceless and stuff, but there's other priceless paintings out there. So Yoda Beast vibes of the Thomas Crown Affair, and I hope you're talking about the remake, not the Steve McQueen version, which makes no sense at all. But the remake with Pierce Brosnan, I like that movie a lot. I know there's some portions of it that are a little strange, but I think it's a fun movie. It's a fun movie, The Thomas Crown Affair. Chris Tope, Blue Ash, Ohio, had a client who was practicing after being in Leavenworth for a couple of years in Ohio. Yeah, no, it's doable now. It is doable now. But like I said, in the old days, it was just disqualifying right off the bat. Yeah, Richard Burke says those trucks are often called cherry pickers. And you'll often see them also working on power lines and stuff. Mark Sparks, who actually owns the art or other property claimed as spoils of war? Can the original owner get their property back? It depends on who won, and so on. As you might know, there's an entire field of law revolving around art that was stolen during World War II by the Germans. In fact, there's been some movies made recently about that, and it's never ending. There's so many things complicating it because a lot of times the original owners aren't around anymore. It's often involving several jurisdictions. So a painting winds up in America that was stolen in Germany, and somebody wants it back. So Yoda Beast, yeah, the remake, absolutely great flick. I actually tried watching the original a couple times, and I made it all the way through one time, and I'm like, no, 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 no. Rich Shope, would you have any idea where I can find someone that is willing to completely polish a crankshaft for a Chevy? I assume you can go online and look up machine shops who do engine work, but yeah, no, I've never gotten that deeply into redoing an engine. Chuck Whitehead, it took more than a day to plan that theft. They had to visit the museum more than once. Oh, I guarantee you that right now they're watching all the surveillance video from that corner of the museum inside and out, and they're going way, way back looking for anybody who's looking around like, oh, studying the ceiling more than they're studying the jewels. Yeah, and Paul Harris reminds us they never found or recovered the art from the Gardner Museum in Boston. The FBI is offering a $10 million reward. That was around 1990. I remember that happening. And it was a strange one because the museum had such little security that people just walked in, overpowered the guard, walked out with a bunch of stuff, and it's never been seen since. No one knows. There's all kinds of great theories and arguments, but no one knows. The Great Quidjabo says number one, Mona Lisa. Number two, Screaming Guy, or The Scream. Number three, that farming couple with a pitchfork. I believe it's American Gothic, isn't it? David Peterson, have you ever wondered what museum the painting Dogs Playing Poker is in? And you know what's funny is everybody knows that painting as Dogs Playing Poker. And the original Dogs Playing Poker, if you look at it closely, one of the dogs is cheating. He's got a card, and he's got it in his back paw, and he's handing it to his friend. And the whole joke is that not only are they playing poker, but they're cheating. And nobody sees that because they're like, oh my God, dogs playing poker. That's so funny. It's even funnier that they're cheating. The Great Quidjabo, you want to talk about art that was stolen? Tell that the British Museum. And of course, that gets us back to the old joke about why are the pyramids in Egypt? Because the British couldn't drag them to the museum. Yeah, Mike Leah, Monuments Men, the movie was all about the U.S. Army recovering stolen art. And again, it was Hollywoodized, but it was an interesting piece of history many people didn't know about because they were trying to get in there right after the frontline soldiers to make sure the stuff didn't disappear too much. So Cromwell 564 says the melting clocks of Salvador Dali. I'm a huge Dali fan. I love Salvador Dali. Absolutely. Dan Boyd, the persistence of time. Chuck Whitehead, Bob Ross paintings. Oh. 858 Bill says the scream is not a drawing of a screamer. The subject is reacting to a scream. Well, and there's also more than one, too. There's several of them. It's one of those situations where the artist had something work so well, he'll do that one again. Which, of course, Dolly did quite a bit. He's got soft clocks and a bunch of things. So Duncan Campbell, Van Gogh, sunflowers and chair. Oh, standard deviation, Richard Crumb. Richard Crumb's a genius, absolute genius. He's got a whole variety of different genres he's drawn. But I mean, he's done everything from biblical illustrations to Amazon women. He's got a fascination with big women. I've actually got some coffee table books of his that are just amazing. Jason Brendamar, I have more respect for the dogs playing poker now. Thanks. Belio says the Egyptians would like Cleopatra's Needleback from Central Park. Yeah, what's weird is there's also one in Paris, not Cleopatra's, but there's one of those obelisks, and that stuff's found its way all over the planet. Jay Klein, I'm not on time, but I'm never late. Okay. Daniel Kester, is Heather, the Canadian robot lady, going to be able to join us today? I sent her a note and asked her that, and she did not respond, but I apologize. I did not contact her earlier. I always think of it at the last minute. Q Freedom says, hey, so you watch another channel, Musty One. He sounds just like you. Keep up the good work. Huh, I'm unfamiliar with that. 858 Bill MC Escher. Yeah, likewise, a guy, and Escher's famous too, although he's probably considered more of an illustrator because he tended to work in a particular style. But he had all of those logic defying images. And then he also had things that would, as you watch them, they'd morph into something else and then morph back. And some are very, very simple but brilliant. Some of them were quite complicated. And literally, I think I've also got several books by him of his work. And it's one of those guys where he just invented a genre, made it his own. I mean, there were probably people doing similar things, but he became synonymous with that type of stuff. So, hey, CyberDoc agrees. MC Escher was the man. Yeah, Joe Hitachi says there's a Dolly Museum here in St. Petersburg. I was in St. Petersburg at a conference a while back, and didn't have a chance to get in there and see that. I'm kind of bummed out. So, Yoda Beast, art history 1, 2, and 3 are my favorite classes in college. What was your favorite random college class? Undergraduate was probably Life on Earth. It was a biology class I took, which was fascinating. Had nothing to do with my major, and I looked forward to it, and I learned a lot, and really gave me a deeper appreciation of a lot of stuff I wouldn't known about otherwise. So, the great Quijubo says Dolly knew that people wouldn't cash his checks if he sketched on the back. I've also heard stories supposedly about Picasso drawing stuff out for people just kind of like quickly. But the sad part is that very, very late in life, Dolly had some people who basically approached him and said, hey, look, just sign a bunch of blank canvases. We'll put stuff on it later and we'll make you some money. And there's a ton of stuff out there where his signature is real, but it's on something he didn't create. And so it's kind of sad, but LGRFBS, have you noticed that Phil from the Wings of Pegasus has reacted to the recent emergence of several fake AI music artists? Oh no, I love Phil. I've corresponded with Phil. I love Phil. And what's amazing is how he will go into a song and show you what's fake about it, whether somebody's using auto tune or pitch correction or just complete AI. And I think that talented musicians like him are pulling their hair out about this new stuff. Bob Blah Blah says the best artwork is found on the refrigerator. It is, of course, and that'd be more what we call primitive art quite often because it looks like it's done by little kids. VTS Now says the thieves used ladder truck like the fire department, an actual ladder. I thought there was a bucket at the top of it or a little platform or something, but I could be wrong. I literally just glanced at it. Just glanced at it. John Michael Karma, MC Hammer, was also the man. Oh, you got to pray just to make it today. Rob Norris, ever been to the art museums in Madrid? No, I've never been to Spain. I've never been to Spain. Yeah, Chris Bulldog, Woman in Gold is the movie I was thinking about. which follows the story, true story, about getting a painting back um, from Austria, and it's a fascinating. It's a Klimt painting. Oh, Pa Rump Mike, ever take a class in college is a lot harder than you expected. Yeah, law school. There were some classes in law school where halfway through the remember a lot of classes in law school, you literally take the class as a final exam. There's nothing before that. You attend class and you get called upon, but you don't have quizzes or papers or just a class and a final. There were classes where I was 1 week out from the final going, I honestly don't know if I've learned this properly. I've learned something, but I'm not really sure if I know enough. And luckily I passed all my classes. But Gord Rath, I'm really excited for your book to arrive. It isn't there yet. It'll be there shortly. Went out on Tuesday, I think. I could be wrong. Signata. Hi, Steve. Hi, Signata. Sometimes I listen to myself. Bald eagles are migrating and are flying over eastern Kansas. I've seen about 40 so far. I saw some bald eagles earlier this week just circling over my property, southeastern Michigan. And, we see them from time to time. In this area, southeast Michigan, not so much because I'm not really near any big lakes. Upper Peninsula, I saw some a couple weeks ago, though. So they're out there. Belio, isn't Norman Rockwell considered an illustrator? Yeah, he's often called that. I mean, he did do paintings, but they were often in the Saturday Evening Post, which you point out are great. Many of them became classics, like classics, and some of them are quite moving. But he's often gotten that knock, and same with Maxfield Parrish. Maxfield Parrish is one of the American greats, and he's always been kind of looked down upon because he was an illustrator, and he did do some advertisements for magazines. He did advertisements and illustrations for books. He did the Arabian Nights in 1909 with 12 illustrations. And then when they put it out again in 1912, it had 9 illustrations. They removed 3 illustrations for some odd reason, including one, The Young Prince, The Black Isle. I apparently know way too much about this, and I don't know why, but I've always liked Maxfield Parrish. Clipperson says you can keep a check after it's cashed. Yeah, but do you want the bank putting a big old stamp on the back of it? Oh, Scott Summers probably don't want to see turkey buzzards or blackbirds overhead. I actually had a turkey vulture in my front yard yesterday. I looked out the window and I've been seeing turkeys lately. I've had turkeys galore all over my property for the last like 3 weeks. I posted some pictures on Facebook, and I looked out there yesterday and I see this big bird. I thought it was a turkey. I'm like, what? That's not a turkey. It's a vulture. And I'm looking and I'm wondering if it's pecking at something. It was just standing there and then it took off and flew away. And I went out and looked just in case there was something there wasn't. It had just landed for whatever reason. But yeah, I see them quite a bit. Yoda Beast, take Logic 101. It's the easiest 2 credits. They said it's not easy. I found out. I took Logic also. Intro to Logic was probably the same thing. I enjoyed that, but I think I did well in it. Um, but what are you gonna do? KWLDWDTH, the man. A friend of mine was trying to get a law license, but after passing the board, he had a DUI and they wouldn't give him one. In what state? Um, I know that a DUI is a crime, and so if you get arrested for drunk driving in Michigan and you're an attorney, you immediately call the bar and let them know. And if you don't report that, that's an offense right there. So, Surfing Bird. Hello, Steve. I love your show. Well, thank you for checking in. Mexican spec, squirrels need trees to survive. The desert isn't their environment. I missed the first half of this discussion, but I can tell you right now, I've had squirrels showing up on my property that were not here last year. And it's weird because I've got walnut trees. I've got walnut trees to the point where they're almost like a weed. Big walnut trees. I would think that the squirrels would love those. But what squirrels like is trees where they can go from tree to tree to get away from predators. So an isolated tree and an isolated tree, squirrels won't hang out there. But if they're close to each other, they can jump from one to the other. There you go. So I've had these squirrels showing up lately, and I hope they do okay. But I've also got red-tailed hawks galore, and I've also got coyotes and foxes. So I'm not sure how well the squirrels do, but we'll see. We'll see. Tigerman 99515 is in the desert and saw a ground squirrel. Yes, ground squirrels are a little different. I think they have burrows, right? Surfing Bird, have a beer on me. Thank you for all the great shows. Well, thank you. I appreciate that very, very much. I really do. Randall Munson, dead skunk in the middle of the road, stinking to high heaven. I believe that is a famous song. Image Doc Ray, always confused by illustrators not being considered illustrious. Illustrious. Gordreth, you email me a P.O. box. I'll print out a picture I took of a hawk and send it to you. My mailing address is in the end screen of every video I put up. And it is P.O. Box 168, Atlas, Michigan 48411. And anything you send there, I will get. eBay, if you could only have one of the two in your life and career, would you choose music or law? Well, that's tough because I make a living with the law, but it would be rough to not be able to appreciate music. I'll tell you that right now. Like the amount of music I listen to, the amount of music I enjoy. So, Pa Rump Mike likes the burrowing owls. Imagine that you can fly, but you live underground. I think the low flying owl sign that I saw originally in Florida years and years and years ago was for owls that were burrowing underground. And because of that, they often came in low to where they lived. And there's a road right there. So, Mrs. Teresa, 1999, a poor young deer got hit by a car across the street from our house, and it's still there. Yeah, sad part is I'm seeing a lot of deer now by the side of the road. I see a lot of them in my yard, but the ones in my yard don't get hit by cars unless they leave. And I see a lot of them out there, and it's like, oh, that's too bad. Brian Browning says Loudon Wainwright, the third, did that song, Dead Skunk, in 1972. Wrote it and sang it. Vinny Sluga's checking in from the rainy, rolling meadows of Illinois. Mark Sparks, would Atlas actually be found in an atlas? I suspect it would be, yes. It is on maps. Bill Lynch, I'm late. No one's really late because anybody who shows up is here. The people who don't show up are the people we have to worry about. Carl's Corner says, with today's post office, you may have to worry about getting the letter. That's true. Oh, Matthias is in the house. Thank you, my friend. Matthias, I got your postcard. I said earlier, if Matthias checks in, and very, very nice card. Dear Steve Lehto, it seems that your T-shirt is still stuck with the Postal Service tracking number is this. And then a couple other kind sentences. And greetings, Matthias. And of course, that is a postcard of the Bismarck in Hamburg. So thank you very much for sending. I appreciate that. And this did get through, but the T-shirt did not. I just got that literally yesterday. Brian Browning says Loudon was also in 3 episodes of MASH as the singing sergeant. Early episodes of MASH contained things that they often got rid of, including one or two episodes where a guy's singing for some reason. Oh boy. Joey C's here now. Sarah C, happy Sunday, Steve, and everyone. Code Mr. Beats, I have deer year round. Funny, I don't hunt, but wouldn't even be fair to I've had deer this week within 5 feet of my house. Like they become acclimatized to my house as just being something out in that big field. John Michael Carmus is a t-shirt still trying to clear customs due to tariffs. It's possible. Padre deer season is now open in Georgia. Well, there's hunting season in Michigan right now, but they have a bunch of different hunts. They've got um, bow hunting. They've got muzzle loading. They've got, all-purpose firearm. But then they've also got like the Liberty hunt and the handicapped hunt and the this hunt and the children. I mean, it's you can't keep track of all this stuff. But so it is going on right now. But when they not announce, but when they actually have the first day open firearm season is the day in Michigan. It is a holiday. It literally businesses close. Some businesses close, and you get the day off. Matthias says maybe you can give the tracking code to your postmaster and he can find the parcel. We can try that. I did not try that because when I picked it up from the P.O. box, the office was closed. So Ram 50V8, my favorite MASH episodes were the McLean Stevenson ones. Yeah, the earlier ones. Andrew Lee, muskox in the neighborhood. Hunting season a few months away. Where are muskox? I don't think we have those in Michigan. Dan Boyd, Johnny Horton rocked. Johnny Horton was to the Bismarck what Gordon Lightfoot was to the Edmund Fitzgerald. JW, good morning from Gillette, Wyoming. Thank you for checking in. Standard deviation. I've had deer, raccoons, coyotes, and a bear on my deck. Okay, I've had a raccoon on my deck, but I only know that because I found his paw prints. Cats, not mine, neighborhood cats. But I've never had the coyotes, the deer, or a bear. There aren't bears probably within 200 miles of me, maybe 150 if you go the right direction, but there's no real bear scare in this area. Prodigal Stranger's got to switch his work schedule so you can watch Lehto's Law live in peace. Missed almost all of it. Oh, that's not good. Mustang MG05 Deer Widow weekend. Lots of sales and shopping. Oh, Andrew Lee, muskox and gnome. I knew that. Yeah, every now and then when they do one of those gold hunting shows, whether it's out on the ice or diving for it, they often have B-roll shot up in the hills overlooking the harbor. And there's often some muskox standing around up there looking kind of bored. Ram 50 V8, I've got some great tow truck stories involving deer. I never hit a deer with my tow truck, but I also almost always driving around in town, like in neighborhoods where there's very, very few deer. Pa Rump Mike, I liked Wayne Rogers in MASH. Josh, my porch was invaded by baby snapping turtles. My brother lives near a body of water where snapping turtles come out to lay their eggs, and they often lay their eggs in his yard. And this year, a batch of them hatched, and he found 3 or 4 of them, literally a day old. And the thing about them is that he's had with his kids baby turtles before, so he still has the aquarium, and so he has the aquarium with the heat lamps, and he brought them inside and got them all healthy, and then he lets them go. And so he released 3 or 4 baby snapping turtles about a week ago. Hang on a second. Andrew Lee's had a few cameos in the gold diving show. Yeah, I think you mentioned that. STP World, did you know that the Simpsons were on Sesame Street? No, I did not know that. Not heard that. Um, Not a watcher of Sesame Street. Simpsons, yes, not Sesame Street. Obvious Captain, I have a video of a 2-foot round snapping turtle. I've seen some big snapping turtles. I also keep gloves, work gloves in my truck. And if I'm driving around, I see a turtle crossing the road, I'll stop if I can safely and carry the turtle across the road. And I've picked up some big snappers. And you just got to know how to grab them right. But I've seen a snapping turtle that I didn't pick this one up, but it probably weighed 50 or 60 pounds or more. Huge. I mean, this thing was huge. So STP World says that Homer even yelled at Bart on it, which I'm surprised about. I had not heard about that. Joey C says by the tail. You can do that. I'm not sure if that's good for them or not, but you can literally grab them right behind the armpits. And that way, when they reach around, they can't get you, and they also can't get you with their head. I've picked up and carried probably 20 or 30 snapping turtles that way. Mrs. Teresa, whoa. Try to picture this: a raccoon with a marshmallow in one pot and a bear in the other. Apparently, raccoons love marshmallows. As my friend said, they bury beer cans to deter certain bugs in their garden. Apparently, they dig up the cans of beer and poke holes with their claws so they can drink the beer. Really? Wow. Raccoons do love marshmallows. They love fruit. They love grapes. They love cherries. And I know it's because I've raised raccoons on 2 different occasions. I've mentioned that before. They're orphans. It's not necessarily the best for them, though. Like you don't want to. If you were raising a raccoon, you don't feed it just marshmallows. It's not good for their teeth. They love puppy chow. Puppy chow. I knew a raccoon rehabilitator. Somebody who rehabilitated animals, and they recommended puppy chow. So there you go. Dougie, to a girl I went to grade school with, lost a toe to a snapping turtle. Really? I mean, I believe it, but what was her foot doing near a snapping turtle's mouth? Or was she like in a shallow lake or something? Blah, blah, blah. Is it true that turtles love pizza? I believe it is. I saw a movie about it. Elliot says you can pick up your snapping toddler from under the armpits too if they're raising a fit in the store. And they can't bite you if you do it from behind. Prodigal Stranger says, last he mentioned, I believe Steve said his hourly rate was $4.75. That's low. It does actually shift, but I've had a court approve a much higher number, believe it or not. Ram 50 V8 raccoons love dry cat food. Yes, and that's probably similar to puppy chow in terms of what content it has in it, you know. So, EDASM, what happens when a raccoon meets a possum? I suspect that the possum just plays dead and the raccoon wanders off out of boredom. Raccoons aren't mean animals. If you corner one or if it's rabid, yes, but generally speaking, most raccoons are extremely shy and secretive, meaning that during the day you'll almost never see them, and at night if you happen upon one, they'll just skitter out of your way unless you've got them cornered or something. And possums, I've got them on my property. I almost never see them. Almost never. I don't even know what they do, possums, but I've seen them play dead before because Wolfie barked at one and it fell over. And I walked over and I'm tapping it with my foot and I see it actually open its eye and go like that, like okay, and it got up and walked away. STP will have to chase away the possums that steal my cat food. I use citrus spray or water. They would probably do it. I would also think that just the approach of a large, person, like something much bigger than them, would do that. So Randall Munson says a raccoon is a nocturnal member of the bear family. Well, interestingly enough, the raccoons have it's not a thumb, it's not a true thumb as far as biologists go, but they have a hand that looks like a hand because they actually have this digit is offset in such a way that they can grip things better. And they're very, very smart, but they are nocturnal. And they're just such fascinating animals to me. Yeah, Gordon Rath says he had raccoons and possums making nests in his roof. Yeah, you don't want them in your house. Yeah, especially now they've entered like through the roof or something. Oh, Fatima Butterpants, I've got a groundhog problem. I've got woodchucks on my property right now. They still stay away from my house. So I don't care. We've reached a peaceful balance of power. They've decided to leave me alone, and I will leave them alone. And what matters is if they start digging near anything like cement or a building. Hang on. Pouring the first cup of watered down Gatorade. Dan Boyd says Caddyshack is free on YouTube right now. Speaking of gophers. Steve G, I witnessed a fight between a 6-foot king snake and a raccoon under a full moon. That's that sounds like a bad country song. And you broke it up. I'm wondering, raccoons will eat snakes, but that sounds like a big snake. So Signatus's raccoons are not related to bears at all. Their closest relatives are coatis and kinkajous. I believe they're also distantly related on some level to pandas, aren't they? Because pandas aren't bears, but anyways. Blah blah blah. No, the thermos is a it's not a thermos brand, it's a Yeti brand. Can you see that Yeti? So I don't know how it works. All I know is it keeps things really, really cold. STP World, I've rescued cats that live on my property, came from neighbors who left them behind. The one thing is that I know of neighbors of mine who feed stray cats, but don't bother getting them fixed or anything, and they just reproduce. And guess what? They become coyote food. So some people haven't thought this through very well. 858 Bill says raccoons won't always run away from people, but they will stay out of reach. We used to try to shoo them away from the outdoor cat food. Well, yeah, they're going, hey, look, my meal's right there, dude. Just step back. Michael McHelfy, I have raccoons and possums come up on my back deck nightly for scraps and feed. I leave out for them in return. They keep the groundhogs out of my front yard, not digging up my flower beds. That's interesting. Yeah, I've toyed with the idea about trying to make peace with some local raccoons because I think that'd be cool. Until they start going, "Where's my food? I bet it's in that house." Oh boy. Larry's dinner. I got a coyote I can borrow. I've got a few. I don't know how many, but I've shown pictures and video of it running around my backyard. So Chuck Whitehead is all. It's that time of year. Raccoons finding food where they can. Yeah, actually, somebody told me they saw a raccoon out the other day during daylight, which is unusual. It's unusual. And I said, but it was near a food source, and it was eating really, really well. And this is the time of the year the raccoons fatten up. Raccoons do not hibernate in the traditional sense of the word like a bear does, but they do hunker down and they are less active. And so part of that is they need to fatten themselves up as much as possible and then, you know, use as little energy as they possibly can when it's really, really cold out. So, Jerry C., happy Sunday to you, Steve, and all. Hope everyone is doing well today. Daniel Kester, I once caught a porcupine. A porcupine. I think that's what they called him in Pogo, right? My brother Dave, who lived out in the woods, had dachshunds, and he had one dachshund that never learned a lesson about porcupines, and on more than one occasion went to take a mouthful out of a porcupine and wound up with the quills stuck in its mouth. And that is a painful and expensive trip to the vet. It's painful for the owner too, because it's expensive. Matthias says there's plenty of raccoons in Germany that escaped from an animal farm during an air raid in World War II. There's raccoons all over the world. They were brought to Japan as pets. Oh yeah, and some of them got out, and they did that, and they are very adaptable animals. They'll get by. STP World says one of the Animaniacs voice actors is from Flint, Michigan. I'm not sure what the Animaniacs is. Is the voice actor famous or is that their only role? Yeah, Zach, my dog caught a porcupine once. Roxon, poor doggy, the porcupine quills. Yeah, no, and the porcupine quills are barbed. They don't just come right back out again. It's crazy. David P., I'm late. What have I missed? Oh no, we just started. Oh boy. STP World, my cats are all fixed and have their shots. We took care of that a long time ago. I've got a very good friend of mine who's an attorney, and he lives up in Alpena, Michigan, which is up here. No. I'm sorry. It's up here. Wrong finger. And he's got strays in the neighborhood. He catches them, gets them fixed, shots, and lets them go. And he's got a little cat condo he puts outside for them. And I think he's got one or two in the house, but the rest are outside. But he's the one who's taking charge of that in his neighborhood. So Kevin Smith, my Yorkie, was almost caught by a falcon. Wow. Vinny Slugas is like, saw an elk in my neighborhood and called the police. Was it breaking the law? I saw a police department that posted on Facebook and said, please do not call 911 for coyotes. They're not illegal. Joe Manji, keep up the good work. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. James Milano's checking from Puebla. Oh, Brian Browning, I have to go now. I love your channel, Mr. Lehto. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Hang on a second. Heather, the community robot lady, says she'll be with us next week. I was just checking. Old Paint 71 says maybe you should call the cops on the coyote if it's wearing roller skates and is wearing a rocket. Yeah, I think at that point maybe. Oh boy. Mexican Spec is back, so we can start talking again. Oh. Yeah, Mark Sparks says it's an indication that raccoons are the good guys because they're wearing a mask like the Lone Ranger. Dr. Rick, hi Steve, wonderful to see you, my friend. Which I don't know why that reminds me, but yesterday I was watching Michigan play Washington in a football game, and the coach of Washington, his name is Jed Fish. And all my radio friends will know, of course, Jed the Fish was the longtime DJ at KROQ Los Angeles who passed away not so long ago. And I couldn't get that out of my head every single time. Well, Jed Fish, Jed Fish. I was watching a football game. Belios is a video of school children outside playing with a hamster, and a hawk swoops down and grabs it, and then eats it in full view on a nearby telephone pole. That's morbid. Of course, you'd think they'd know better than to be playing with a animal like that outside. I mean, a dog on a leash or a pet that'll come when it's called. Hamsters generally, I don't think they're that bright. I mean, I like them and all that. Don't get me wrong. So, MHOH says, show me where in the law it says a coyote can't wear roller skates and a rocket. This is one of the situations where I think the police will arrest somebody and call the prosecutor, like, here, you figure it out. Pa Rump Mike, everyone worried enough about animals you'd carry bear spray. No, although I've carried not bear spray, but another kind of spray, that it's not tear gas, but it's the legal stuff. But I'm only worried about dogs because when I was training to run longer distances, I'd have to go out and run 10, 15 miles. And I'd often do that on old back roads, country roads. And once in a while, you're out in some country road out in the middle of nowhere, and a dog comes running out after you. And you're like, is it feral? Is it someone's pet? Is it what's this dog doing running loose? And I've had dogs that chased me, so it's like, I know one thing that annoys a dog is something that smells really, really strong. Zach says that's why you should keep your hamster on a leash. And the bad news is if the hawk grabs the hamster and you've got the leash and you're playing tug of war over that hamster, it's still probably an ugly image. Oh boy. Mark Sparks would never buy anything made by Acme as their failure rate is quite high. That is true, which leads us to the case of Coyote versus Acme, which we're making some progress on. Like I said before, we're going to have a showing of that film, but it doesn't come out till the fall of next year, so it's still a long ways off. At a old school theater someplace. Haven't picked the location yet. And what we're going to do is I'll be there. I'm going to try to get Heather, the Canadian robot lady, there. I'm going to try to get some other friends of the show there. And the Institute for Justice, if this all works out, will be there as well. And what we'll probably do is have a meet and greet type reception beforehand, show the movie, and then have a question and answer thing on stage afterwards. A little more lighthearted than your typical question and answer you might have with a bunch of lawyers sitting on a stage. But the Institute for Justice, I think a lot of people who follow my show will appreciate being able to talk to those people and just bounce some ideas off and talk to them about what they do and so on. But also just because we'll all be there for that movie, we can discuss the legalities and the courtroom accuracy of Coyote versus Acme. So we'll go there. Tom Tuttle says it's not Acme's fault; it's user error. Operator error is a valid defense, assuming that it was being misused. So Daniel Kessler has tried to get Jay Leno there. Yeah, I don't know that you want to come necessarily hang out and watch a movie with us in some Random theater. Carl's Corner says you can have Heather do the intro and outro for the movie. Oh no, I'm gonna have her do the announcements. I'm gonna have her do random announcements. Image Doc Ray, will you be arriving at the movie in a Roadrunner? Now that's pretty deep. That's pretty deep. If it's nice that I could arrive in my Cobra, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't have a Roadrunner. Mexican spec, has to take care of his wife, so he's staying close to home mostly. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about me. Jay Leno tours right now. In fact, I saw him earlier this year. I've seen him a few times recently. So yeah, Richard Terhune says, yeah, and then Jay could bring his turban car. MH08. It's a full length movie. It's a full length movie. Robert Sherman says, I'd love to join the party, but I would just sit in the back corner and get high. You can do that. We don't care. No, actually, unfortunately, smoking in the theater is probably against the law. LGRFBS, can you connect with the Swedish cinema so we can watch the event too? I will probably have the event live streamed. We won't be able to live stream the movie itself, but we can live stream the reception portion of it, and then we can live stream the stage portion of it afterwards. So people who cannot make it to the show will be able to watch the beginning and ending of it as of the event. And so I don't want it to simply be like we all go watch the movie and we leave. I mean, that would be stupid. Meanwhile, Sisu 2 is coming out this fall. And I'm thinking about announcing the day I'm going to go see it and see if anybody wants to come watch it with me, because Sisu 2 is obviously the most important cinematic event of this year, but that's another story altogether. Mexican spec, he talks about enjoying taking care of her. Oh, he does take care of her, but he has toured his entire working life, and so I know that he tours, but he'll go out and do a show and come back, so he might not be home for one night or two nights, something like that. Bob Bong, there's an old theater in downtown Benton Harbor. I'm probably not going to do it in Michigan, simply because I don't think there's as many people in Michigan as there are just a little bit south of me. I'm thinking more in terms of Ohio or Pennsylvania or something. That I'm trying to think where's more central to get more people to it. I could be selfish and go, hey, I want to do it near where I live, but I know I get more people if I go a little bit further south. MHU, I remember when they had smoking sections in movie theaters. Yeah, smoking sections on airplanes. Tom Tuttle, I want Sisu to turn into a franchise just like Planet of the Apes. You know, on one hand, I agree with you, but I'm also a little concerned because sometimes those franchises can run off the rails. But if they keep the quality level up, my understanding is they gave the guy a bigger budget this time. So I'd like to see it as more of a James Bond type franchise where they can just, somehow keep it up there. But we'll see what happens. Pa Rump Mike says Columbus is very central. That's one of the ideas I'm having is someplace like that. I'll get ripped on eternally by the people from Michigan, the Wolverine fans, but what are you going to do? VP Records, you are the best. Randall Munson, every car and truck had an ashtray, standard, no extra. I'm curious. I mean, I still refer to that thing as a cigarette lighter. The plug in your dashboard. Tom told us bigger budgets can destroy a movie. They can, but it just depends if it's well spent. Yeah, Belius way back, the whole movie theater was a smoking section. Go find photographs of people at like a basketball game in the 1950s, and they're all wearing hats and smoking. Casey, Jimmy, I sent you a write up via email with CFR citations on the new Marvin debacle. The NHTSA are pretty clear on this follow up in manufacturing. Thank you. Code Meester Beats, the Louvre's been robbed. No, we talked about that earlier. Yeah, Zach points out that if Wile E. Coyote had subscribed to the Acme app, he can't sue anybody. Some of those things may have malfunctioned because he wasn't keeping up on his payments. Doug Jones says a cigarette lighter is now called a power outlet. That's what they call the hole. my Viper, it has a little ashtray, and I've got the cigarette lighter in the ashtray because I'm using the hole for charge my phone and stuff. Pa Rump Mike's Las Vegas isn't central, but it's got a lot of flights and a lot of hotel rooms. Yeah, but the real problem I've got is I'm not sure many people would actually fly to see this, but I'm hoping people will drive a little ways. Like I personally, I drive, 8 or 9 hours to go places once in a while, just for the fun of it. I drove down to Atlanta to shoot some videos with Vin Wiki and Ed Bolian. And that was a hike. I drive the Upper Peninsula 5-6 times a year, and that can be 8, 9, 10 hours. So I'm hoping people are willing to drive a little ways because no matter where I do it, it's only to be local to some people. Tigerman 99515. Anybody worked in the food industry in the 60s and 70s can tell you all about having your clothes stink when you got home. I remember going to bars and shows in the 1980s where everyone smoked, and you'd come back from a show reeking of cigarettes. And I mean, I had a leather jacket, and I'd leave it hanging outside to air it out because otherwise it'd stink up the house. Yeah, Daniel Kester, my high school had a smokers hall. I know people went to school and there's a courtyard they're allowed to smoke in. Illegally, of course, but what the hell? Oh, I mean, what the heck? I am McNathan says, I'll be flying in wherever you pick. Really? We'll see. I'll hold you to that. Andrew Kuchowski, did Ed take you out in his Bugatti? No, he took me out in a Lamborghini, though. I rode in the Lamborghini that he just sold. I believe he just sold it. And it was the Yakuza Lamborghini. It was all blinged out on the inside. It was hilarious. Tom Tuttle, Vegas gets expensive. You're not losing all your money. Yeah, they'll get your money one way or the other. John Michael Karma used to be able to smoke in hospitals. And remember when doctors would recommend cigarettes? You almost picture like the doctor smoking with one hand and delivering a baby with the other, and the mom smoking too. Pa Rump Mike claims he'll go there. Wants to meet me and the IJ people. See if Rick Beato will go. I've corresponded with Rick once or twice, not that much. I'm not sure that he'd find this to be his thing or not, but I might have to look around and see if there's some people who might make sense to show up there. But we'll see. We got a long time here. Yeah, Midas Claus says you can still smoke at the drive-in. Matthias says driving 6 hours, I'm in Amsterdam. 2 puts me in Poland. 5 hours, I'm in Prague. That's cool. Belio, remember smoking in Kroger and other grocery stores? Standard deviation used to have professors smoke in class in the late 70s. I have friends who talked about high school teachers who were still smoking in the 80s, but they weren't supposed to smoke in class, but a couple of them would like smoke in their office and just, you know, they'd been there so long they let them get away with it. Vinnie Northwest, and they give the troops in World War II free cigarettes. Yes, yes. Padre, my mother used to smoke while at the Piggly Wiggly, which is the greatest name for a store of all time. STP World says the Louvre was just robbed. Did you do that? No, no, I've got an alibi. I was here. Oh boy. Kevin Smith, I remember smoking in the hospital, recovering after surgery. Oh, yeah, sure. That's just what your recovering body needs. A good old hit of nicotine. Belios Rick Beato could do a "What Makes This Song Great" about the Roadrunner theme song. Oh boy. JC the Music Man is here. Image Doc Ray says indoor smoking bans are what killed the popularity of bowling. Virtually all bowlers smoked. That's an interesting correlation. I'm curious to know that simply because bowling is one of those things where, although it takes skill and it takes some effort, it doesn't really take a huge increase in your cardiovascular strength to do. So you could smoke and bowl and probably also drink, right? Oh. Doug Jones once stole a cigar and he was throwing up for hours. Yeah, Belio says World War One and Two is probably where a lot of people started smoking. Smoke them if you got them. Yeah, and besides, if you're, I don't know, pulling guard duty in the snow, someplace in the Ardennes forest, and that'll give you a quick pick me up. It'll warm you up, put some nicotine in your system, you know. So Bob blah blah says no smoking laws had a huge effect on the attendance at AA meetings. That's interesting. I always picture, and again, I've never been to an AA meeting, but I always picture them because in the movies and so on, you always see people sitting around smoking. And I've heard that a lot of people who smoke and drink, who get in trouble for drinking, like drinking and driving, will try to give up drinking, but they couldn't give up smoking at the same time. It's like pick one. So Pa Rump Mike says the bowling alley I worked in was so smoky you couldn't see the far lane. A cloud of indoor haze. Oh boy. Chuck Whitehead says some vapes have more nicotine than a cigarette. And the sad part is that people take vapes everywhere and just assume that, well, I'm not smoking. I can vape here. And I've been places where people are vaping and just total disregard for the rules on smoking. But Daniel Kester says bowling, you don't have to be good to have fun, or you don't have to be in shape either. Gord Rath, it's hard to give up more than one addiction at a time. See, that's the problem with the guy in Airplane who wanted to give up everything the same week. Randy Regal says my doctor told me vaping is worse than smoking. I've heard all kinds of things. I just know it's probably not good for you. Oh. Yeah, Matthias points out you shouldn't be smoking if you're on guard duty because number one, the sniper can see the lights. But also, um, it's probably distracting you a little bit too. But like I said, it's a comfort thing, I suspect, for many people. Power Rump Mike was a great bowler, only sport I was good at. I've only bowled like 3 times in my entire life. Literally. I never had friends who bowled. I remember I had a friend who lived right next door to a bowling alley, and I mentioned I never bowled before. He said, "Oh, let's go bowling." So we went bowling. That's the first time, and a couple other times, it's never got into it. So there you go. Belio's asking, so wait, vaping isn't doctor recommended? 8 out of 10 doctors who vape recommend. 858 Bill used to throw in a dart league and cannot throw well without a cigarette and a couple of shots. uh, Martian Murray, I bowl so little, I'm equally good right-handed or left-handed. What's funny is I play Little League Baseball, and sometime around when I was 11 or 12, I heard about some guy who was you could hit right-handed or left-handed. So that I should teach myself to do that. It can't be that hard. I taught myself to bat left-handed. And in later life, I played in softball leagues and even in high school. And occasionally I bat left-handed. And it would mess with people's heads because I was in a softball league and I walk up the first time left-handed. And and so everybody shifts and I get a hit or something. Next time I walk up, they all shift, and then I walk the other side of the plate. And they're all like, wait, what? And I do it on purpose just to mess with them. But that's the kind of stuff that entertains me. So there you go. Josh said he heard about a study that said nicotine improved concentration even among non-smokers. Well, it's a stimulant, right? So it's bound to do something to wake you up. I mean, there's lots of lots of things that would probably improve your concentration. That might not be good for you otherwise. Yeah, nicotine is a stimulant. Caffeine, likewise, right? Mark Sparks, I can shoot left-handed, but I still sight with the right eye. You talking about a cordless hole punch, or are you talking about like basketball? Because don't forget, Bo Kimball, shooting in honor of Hank Gathers, would take his first foul shot of every game with his left hand. Um, very very obscure story, but 3 people in the audience know about it. Yeah, Chuck White had some people back in the day smoked to get free stuff. You get a free fanny pack. I've only got to smoke 25 more packs and I get a free fanny pack. What do you need a fanny pack for? To carry my cigarettes around in and my lighter. Yeah, Mark Sparks is referring to the cordless hole punch, is what you call that. Fatty Butterpants is an NCSU basketball player once said he's amphibious because he could shoot with either hand. That's one of those words that gets misused a bit. Ambidextrous, amphibious, amphibolous, different words. Say as I remember. Loyola Marymount. That happened while I was in law school. And a guy sat next to us, his name is Dave Reinard. Really, really cool guy. He went to Loyola. He came in one day and he's like, "You're not going to believe what happened." He tells me a story about Hank Gathers dying on the court. And Loyola got into the tournament that year and actually made it pretty far into the tournament. In fact, they made it into the round where they lost to UNLV. And UNLV looked like professional basketball players. They're that good. But Hank Gathers was not there, but Bo Kimball was. and they were doing really well into that tournament. And my torts professor, we walked into class, and the final exam was a stack of newspaper clippings about Hank Gathers, and the essay that you had to write was, "You are the attorney representing the estate of Hank Gathers. List and describe every cause of action you're going to file. Go. You have 3 hours." And Dave Reinert was reading this, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and we both started laughing. And because we both knew the story so well that we just started writing, you know. And there was a woman in the class who probably didn't even know necessarily what basketball even was, didn't follow sports, didn't follow nothing, nothing. And about an hour and a half into the exam, we're halfway done. I look over, and she's still reading the newspapers. So she's trying to figure out what happened. True story. I got a really good grade in that one, and so did Dave. Kevin Smith says cigarettes for 28 cents out of a machine. You got 2 pennies in the cigarette pack. I remember when they're 25 cents a pack. I remember that you could actually go to a machine with a quarter and get a pack of cigarettes. And that was during my lifetime. I was going to say I'm not that old, but I guess I am. Prodigal Stranger says the Ron White joke. If I knew the difference between antidote and anecdote, my friend Jim would still be alive. I've never heard that one before. Cyberdoc says there actually are ambidextrous amphibians. I feel amphibious about that. Pa Rump Mike says, I'm a UNLV fan and grad. It kills me how great we were and how bad we are now. UNLV, I seem to recall they had some issues with some NCAA violations back when those were actually a thing. But they were so good. So good. And to have a school that's, I mean, I understand it's a big school, but it's not a big school in the sense of, to have a school like that, and they were dominant in basketball. It was amazing. Pod races, chocolate goes to part of your brain right next to the interesting part. Just coincidentally, I eat a lot of Hershey bars. Tarkanian, Dan Boyd. Yeah. Tapacha, how old are you guys? I've got a really good memory. So I'll tell stories about when I was in elementary school, and people think I'm talking about like something when I was an adult. Like I remember being, I remember listening to the Tigers in the World Series in 1968. And people would go, "My God, you're old." Well, to be alive in 1968 is not that crazy, Image Doc Ray, I'd give my right arm to be ambidextrous. That's like an O. Henry short story. Chris Tope, remember the days when parents could send their kids to buy cigarettes with a note? With a note. Bob Kerflugen, it's been fun, but I've got to go to bed. Good night, everyone. Daniel Kester, 62. Joel Jensen is 60. We're all right about the same cohort, as we would say. Gord Rath's a youngster, 38. Padre, 61 this month. On Halloween? Padre, really? Wow, that's pretty cool. Dan Boyd, I remember a few minutes of 1968. Power Mike, coming up on 65. Mexican Spec, Steve, do you think the next July 4th will be a huge deal like it was in 1976? I hope not. Only reason to say that is you have to have been around in 1976 when the bicentennial was the big thing. Everything was the bicentennial. Don't get me wrong, it was cool. We had a 200th birthday, right? Everything. Hey, it's a bicentennial solo cup. Hey, it's a bicentennial coaster. Hey, this is a bicentennial pen. And you got so sick of that word, that concept. It was people were praying for the end of the year to come. So I suspect they will make a big deal, but 250 is not as big as 200 in terms of it just doesn't seem as important as the ones with the zeros on the end, multiple zeros. So, Cyberdoc, you get a chance to watch the movie The East? No, I did not. I'm going to make a note to myself here. Movie The East. There you go. A few more 61s in there as well. Cyberdoc had a red, white, and blue Christmas tree in 1976. There you go. There you go. A bicentennial Christmas tree. Bicentennial soda bottles. Oh, those, yeah. Soda bottles and beer cans, of course. Pa Rump Mike, they painted the fire hydrants red, white, and blue. Sure. Image Doc Ray, bicentennial is almost as bad as Y2K. I have mixed feelings about Y2K because I know people in the industry who say, the reason that it wasn't as big of a deal as people worried about was because we fixed everything. But there was a very good friend of mine, and I'll get him to come on here one of these and tell the story. I don't have guests on very often, but a good friend of mine filed a lawsuit, the heart of which was a client of his bought something that malfunctioned due to Y2K, and he filed a lawsuit. And it was considered to be the first Y2K lawsuit. And he was getting interviewed by news organizations around the world. It was just another lawsuit. But because it was the first Y2K lawsuit, it became a big deal. So Steve says I was 0 years old for most of 76. Tigerman 99515 bought a new car, and drove around the U.S. for the bicentennial. Wow. Oh, Kevin Smith, back when Michigan had the red, white, and blue plates in 1977. So you bought them in 76, and they're good for another year. And then I forgot what year it was they stopped replacing the plate every. There was a time when you got a new plate every single year. And now, of course, they last a few years. SKS Hugo, some guy bombed the power transfer station next to my house on New Year's Eve, 1976. Cops evacuated us 5 minutes before it blew. We were a block away when it went. A crazy story. Yeah, Dan Boy, don't forget the bicentennial coins, quarters. Oh, Cyberdoc, the bridge from Philly to Camden. A lot of bridges, a lot of towns, a lot of buildings got lit up, that kind of thing. Manuel Guerra's checking in late. You got a half hour, my friend. We're still here. Hey, Manuel, any luck speaking to the guy with the car? The scooter guy says they repainted the hydrant in front of his house red, white, and blue in 76, but it stayed that way for a few years. Yeah, that's the thing. In 77, they're like, well, I'm not going to repaint it. Leave it. Yeah, old paint. 71 says we had to learn how to spell sesquicentennial in grade school in 1986 because that, of course, would be the 150th anniversary of something such as Michigan's becoming a state, Michigan's statehood. 1837 would become 1987, the sesquicentennial. Now it's the semi-quincentennial. Oh, boy. Prodigal Stranger says, hey, I broke my arm in 2 places. I was talking to my doctor. He said, yeah, don't go to those places. Oh, boy. Pa Rump Mike, Gerald Ford, and the win buttons. Whip inflation now. See, the best way to whip inflation is to wear a button saying you're going to whip inflation. And, of course, if you see inflation, you pop him one. Chris Better, my dad bought a brand new Chevy pickup in 1976. He still has it. Cool. Belio, I get no respect. Oh, S. Gutog, remember back when the Olympics were in the same year, winter and summer, and then they staggered them? 1976, Montreal. Joshua Johnson, I finally got around to watching Doc Hollywood. Nice pig, Doc. It's a fun movie. Never trust a man. This is Woody Harrelson talking about dentists. Never trust a man who will put his hand in another man's mouth. Prodigal stranger, when inflation comes around, you must whip it. Whip it good. Gordrath, do I have to pay income tax if I make zero income? Well, I think the tax on zero is zero. I think there's a minimum. If you make below a minimum, I don't think so, but consult a tax advisor. I don't do tax law. Tigerman99515. Remember inflation from around then? A conventional mortgage, 11%. Yeah, there was a couple times, where mortgage rates, 10, 11%. I mean, want to talk about a bad housing market. Steve, what do you think about $4,000 gold and $50 silver? It's kind of wild. It's kind of wild. I was actually at an antique show a week ago, yesterday. I was talking to a coin dealer, and it used to be you could find like a Morgan dollar for like 18, 19 bucks. And now they're like, 40, 45, something like that. So Solid Pixel got 7% mortgage in 04. Daniel Kester says it's a zero tax rate up to 5K. I assume you're referring to federal. Rob Wessel, rates hit 18% in 1981. Was that the standard mortgage? I know the mortgage rates got really high a couple of times. 81 was one of the times. There was a recession right around there. That's also when gas skyrocketed. Gas had gone up during the oil embargo, but it also went up right around there. I remember. I learned so much about the economy when I first owned a car, how much insurance and gasoline costs. Gordress says a lot of Morgan dollars are fake. Well, you got to make sure they're not, but yeah, unfortunately. S. Gutog says 1976 was an election year, Ford and Carter, adding even more into the celebration of that year. Herb Wagner says, "Hey, Steve, I picked up my new 2026 Explorer Platinum yesterday, and I'm watching you on my info screen with YouTube." Okay, so long. I hope you're not driving, and if you are driving, don't look at the screen. But I've got a 2024 Ford Explorer. I don't think mine's got that capability, but I hope you enjoy it. The scooter guy says if you spend money, you pay taxes. Yeah, but we're, I presume, talking about filing an income tax return. So it's starting to look gloomy again outside. I'm worried that it might. I know there's a lot of backlight there, but I oh yeah. I had to refocus my eyes, but the rain is coming down diagonally right now, right out there. Bob blah blah says I was watching on my dashboard right up until the big crash. Oh boy. S. Gutog says learning about insurance is an eye opener. I could afford a Corvette when I was much younger, but not the insurance. I bought a Camaro Z28 instead. Bought the Vet when I was older. Strangely, the Camaro was probably more or just as dangerous as the Corvette, except that it'd be less expensive to repair. So there you go. Oh yeah, it's it's coming down. Uh, the Prodigal Stranger, yes, lovely English weather here in Michigan. Let me see if I can get up a if I can get up a radar image. Oh, it doesn't look that bad. Yeah, doesn't look that bad. Let's back way out. It's back way out. Well, there's the. Can I? Yeah. Is there something I can do? I've done this before. Yeah. Anyways, you can see there's a big old system going all across Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, and up into Ontario. So it's not a day to take the Cobra out. Oh, JW, did you hear about the robbery at the Louvre? Yeah, we talked about that earlier. Haven't read much about it, but I literally saw the story this morning. I'll read about it a little later on as they release more information. Yeah, S. Gutog says 1984, so it's a 305 in the Camaro versus a 350 in the Vet. And a young driver behind the wheel is the real expensive part. But even so, I mean, a 305 Camaro versus a 350 Vet, um, I suspect you're just as likely to get speeding tickets in either one. But like I said, the Corvette repairs are probably more expensive. Kevin Smith, it is raining in Akron. Randall Munson, are you missing your calling as a weatherman? I'd have to do more of this kind of stuff, you know. And you're in the high pressure system. It's going to push that out over the Rockies. Oh. Standard deviation, take the Viper out. Practice your street ballet. I've driven a Viper in the rain, but not mine. It's a long story, but I drove a Viper years ago. I got to drive a press car. But my Viper still has stickers inside the wheel wells from the factory. And considering it left the factory 26 years ago, that's pretty impressive. So I hate to drive it in the rain. And Dave McDave, who is similarly named as Bodie McBoatface, um, says it's raining here in the UK. Leon Anders, I had a 1971 Camaro with a 350 in it. Rat motor. It was quick and it cost me a lot of points. One of my brothers had an SS 396 Camaro. Um, and that thing was a monster also. Um, very, very understated. It wasn't a Z28 or anything like that. It was just, I'm not quite sure. I don't know enough about Camaros. It was a 4-speed 396. And it was fast and it was like silver. It was a silver. It wasn't a flashy. You wouldn't have guessed it was as fast as it was. Padre at a 1984 Daytona Turbo. When I bought it, the insurance was $75 a month. A year and 3 tickets later, it hit $300 as more than the car payment. Okay, and so that was, I believe, the car that I talked about on my second channel on Friday night, where I bought a used car and I found that it had a bad turbocharger in it. And the salesman sold me an extended service contract. And it's kind of a goofy story, but it's true. And I think it was an 84. It was black. and I drove that car until 1990 or 91, maybe it was 90. So I got a lot of mileage out of it. Man, yeah, crazy story. Signata, I forgot to mention that I got a volunteer job at the South Dakota Mines radio station, KTEQ 93.1. I DJ on Wednesday nights. Cool. Do you get to play anything you want? Is that a school station? Is that what SD Mines is? Is it the South Dakota School of Mines? I think we talked about that before. That's cool. Nothing like college radio. Pa Rump Mike, why don't the Arrowbird, Thunderbirds, and Cougars get more respect? They're a big step in aerodynamic design. I love the lines in those cars. They're very cool looking cars. The Thunderbirds always had like an identity problem because remember the T-Birds started out as a little sports car, and somewhere along the line it became like a luxury car. And it's like, no, 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 no. Keep it one or the other. Belia, was a 396 a big block or a small block? I believe it was a big block. Dan Boyd says 396 was a big block. Did they make a 396 small? Knowing General Motors, they might have. They did all kinds of weird stuff. Oh. Mike Lackner, I was camping and you started without me. I haven't even showered the smoke off me yet. Camping? Where are you camping in October? I realize that there are places you can. I'm just curious. John Michael Carmen says most people don't know that the silver Z20s are faster than the red. No, but they'll sneak up on you better because you know when there's especially in the '80s, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler were all bad at this, where they put stickers and louvers and air extractors and hood scoops that did nothing all over a car and call it something else. And you're like, but those vents don't do anything. That hood scoop doesn't do anything. The stickers don't make it go faster. And so to have a quiet sleeper of a car is kind of cool, you know. At least I thought so. Daniel Kester says they tried a 4-door version of the T-Bird. I was not aware of that. Wouldn't surprise me. KC6NFV, have any snow in Michigan yet? No. They'll get snow in the upper peninsula quite often, weeks before we get it in the lower, but I don't believe we've had any stick. I think they had a tiny little bit in the air a week or two back, but nothing that was going to stick. Dan Boyd says the big block, the 400, was really a 402, but they called it a 396. That's another goofy thing that GM did, although they all did that on some level, is they just thought another number sounded better. Because if it's 400, it sounds like we're rounding off. So we'll call it 396. Why not 399? Well, then it sounds like a gasoline price or something, you know? If Padres is painted on flames, make it go faster. Randall Munson, the sports package. The sport package. Yes, that makes it go faster. John N. Jr., I've been camping for 30 years. Peter Mandix had an 87 Regal Turbo T that was scary fast, but the brakes and handling were scarier. But I'm always curious about a car like that. Are we talking like a 14-second quarter mile, 15-second quarter mile? I'm just curious because I know that Buick made a bunch of really cool engines. In fact, you can go back to like the 455s that were like, you know, the stage ones in the Skylarks and so on, Grand Sport X and so on, or the later GNX. They did have some serious mills, you know. But I'm just curious about what a fast car from the 80s was with respect to a quarter mile. Carl's Corner, you mean my screaming chicken doesn't help my car go faster? Or the flaming turkey? You can call it Trans Am. Originally had that little bird up on the bumper, and then they got the big bird which of course can also call the Big Bird. Doug Jones, white letters in the tires also make it go faster. I'm really sad because they don't make the white letter tire I'd like to have in my Cobra for the wheels I've got. I'd have to go to a smaller wheel to get the tires I like. So I had to pick there. So there you go. Signata says this is actually my third DJ stint. The last two are internet stations with a lot less rules, but it's fun being on a legit campus station. I know it's going to sound counterintuitive, but it's fun to work someplace with structure. You might think, boy, if I could do anything I wanted, this would be a great radio station. But if everybody does what they want, the station changes for each DJ. And then people just stop listening because they're like, why would I listen to that station? But if it's structured properly and you play good music and you're doing your job right, people will listen and enjoy it. So there you go. Mexican Spec, did you see that the 1979 Ford Pinto Squire, which I believe is the Ford Pinto station wagon with the wood grain paneling, sold at Barrett Jackson for $31,000 over the weekend? I saw that it sold. I didn't see the price, but it doesn't surprise me. If it was in like showroom condition, absolutely. It's just such an unusual car. So few of those are left. Peter Mandix says I spent all the money to run low 12s. Low 12s is good. I mean, that's pretty fast. And forgot about stopping at the end. Yeah, you're going to need to slow that thing down someplace. Daniel Kester, the bird on the Trans Am was supposed to be a phoenix. Of course, that's why he's on fire. He's rising up from his ashes. But people who didn't like General Motors just say, yeah, but it looks like a flaming turkey. Prodigal stranger, get the tires you want in a whiteout pen. What about just rattle canning with white spray paint and like stencil? Couldn't I? In fact, I wonder is that Banksy guy available? Like maybe I can get him to graffiti the tires of my car, white letter. Ask Gutog, the Buick Grand National was a very fast 80s car. Yeah. Kevin Smith had a Pinto wagon. I actually knew a kid in high school. His family's other car was a Pinto wagon. He got to drive it. And he was just humiliated. It was a really weird color, and you always wonder when you see some family that buys a car, and the car it was flesh colored. I didn't even know they made cars in this color. And Chrysler had some really bad problems with colors in the 70s also. They put out a car that was this really hideous lime, not the lime green you'd see in a Superbird, but like a dull metallic green. You'd see them on Volaris, and even brand new, it looked like garbage. And you're like, why would they even have that color? And who would say, yes, let's put that on cars? Who'd buy them? And this poor guy I went to high school with is driving around in a flesh colored Pinto wagon. And I'm like, and you know that what happened was they walked onto the lot that we need a cheap car. Well, we'll give you $100 off this car right now. Boom, they buy it. Otherwise, who in their right mind would buy it? Joel Jensen says the official name of that would be Puke Green. Terrell Cochran had a flesh-colored Pinto hatchback. So I wasn't dreaming about that color, was I? Dan Boyd, family friend, had a freewheeling Pinto wagon with a panel and a porthole window. Porthole window. That's got to be an option. Yes, I need the porthole window. It's like the opera window. Oh boy. The prodigal stranger, I saw a beige on beige minivan the other day and thought, when did you give up on life? Oh boy. Gordon Rath says I may have raced or not up to 140 an hour with someone I may or may not have known on the highway. A buck 40? Oh, that's real fast. Mike Lackner, I generally hate purple, but the Dodge Super B purple was very sexy. There are always exceptions, orange cars. Well, the orange Superbird's nice. The orange GTO is nice, you know. But it all depends. So there are some cars, some colors, it depends on the car and the color, but once in a while they're still work. So Scott Argo, my high school driver's ed cars were Pintos. We had like little Chevy Monzas, just the little throwaway, whatever the cheapest car Chevy made at that time. Mark Sparks is on acid green car on the sales lot with tangerine wheels. uh, JC the musician says, "Don't post videos of you driving fast until after the statute of limitations." I did the video yesterday about the woman in Florida doing the hack about how to save money at Target by stealing. She got arrested for that. Can you imagine that? Who'd have thunk it? Glenn Lago saw 56 Studebaker. It was pink. It looked good. There's that hot pink that Chrysler put out that you could get like a Cuda in a. They called it pink. It was darker though. Oh my gosh, that was a cool looking car, especially with the flat bat or the matte black hoods. Really cool. Randall Munson, the Dodge Diplomat, was our driver's ed car. Dodge Diplomat. Oh, see, JC the musician says, exactly what I was thinking about. See, I've been in a car doing well over 150, like well over 150. But see, being in a car is not a crime. And it also depends on where you are. Because I've also been in a car at a high rate of speed on a closed course, not open to the public. So these are all distinctions that are very, very important to keep track of. Pod, remember the pink Mary Kay Cadillacs? I'm not even sure were they all Cadillacs or just pink cars. I thought there were some other non-Cadillacs, but I've seen some Mary Kay pink cars. Belio, my mom had a 302 Maverick Grabber in Grabber Blue. Grabber. They had such a hard time coming up with cool names. The Dodge Challenger, Dodge Charger, the Maverick Grabber. I'm not sure why you call a car a grabber. I can think of situations and contexts where that's not a good thing. You got to keep away from that guy. He's a grabber. uh, Mike Leah says Chevy Monza worth about $8,000 today. What year? Cyberdoc says, "Hey, thanks for another great Sunday. All the usual suspects were here, except for Johnny Knoxville. I'll have to send him a note. Haven't heard from him in a little while." And the Canadian Robot Lady says she will be here next weekend. Hopefully. We'll see. Image Doc Ray says most Mary Kays were Cadillacs, but not all. And Glenn Lago concurs. Kevin Smith, 160 in an L88 Vet when my youth pastor took me for a ride. Was he trying to scare you into changing your lifestyle? If you don't straighten up your life, bad things could happen to you. Padre, does it bother anyone else that the new Maverick is a truck? No more than that the new Mustang's four-door. Ford lost its way a long time ago. Robert Lee says Mary Kay used to give away 300 pink Cadillacs a year, and he knows because he painted more than a few of them. Okay. Bill Buck 40 through, oh, I'm sorry, a buck 40 through Denver. 12 pack nitrous for us, not the car. Doug Jones, the youth pastor, had God riding a shotgun. And Pa Rump reminds us that nothing can touch my hot rod Lincoln. Lion Zookeeper, that Mustang EV upset me and pretty much any other muscle car guy. What's weird is it's selling really well. But it's one of those things. It's just the Mustang was so iconic that I really think they should have made a separate platform, but no one listens to me when it comes to these things. Kevin Smith says it was raining at 160 miles per hour. Those are speeds where bad things can happen so quickly, and such small things can cause bad things to happen that you pretty much have got to go, I'm not sure of this. Maybe we should lift. I've probably told the story before, but I've been in a car where I was the passenger, where someone looked at me and said, "Guess how fast we're going?" And I'll cut to the chase. We were doing 150. I didn't realize that we were doing 150. He'd crept up there so fast. We were doing 150, but that's another story for another day. I'm going to wrap it up now because we've been here for over 2 hours. And I will talk to you guys next time. As always, check out all my channels, my videos on my main channel. I have a backup channel where I've got the story about the turbocharger and the extended service contract that went up on Friday. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.